Hi, I'm Mark Williams. This is The Curious Builder. Welcome to The Curious Builder podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. I'm with Mike Schmillen with Rive City Tile and Stone. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Mark. Glad to be here. Good to see you again.
It is. It's so we've been working with you now for probably over a decade, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Maybe longer.
Yep, definitely. You did some work right before I was with Rive City with us, and definitely since I've been there, which is 10 plus years that I've owned the company. So.
And for those listening who don't know what it is that you do, why don't you give us a quick bio on what it is that you guys do?
Yeah, we're a little different than most tile companies. So we work with builders and remodelers. We're tile installers. We provide the tile, install the tile. We've also got a floor prep business, so we pour floors, we do cementitious underlayments, epoxies, stuff like that. So we've got a couple different market segments that we're in. But
and that part's kind of new to the business, right? The epoxy side of things?
The epoxy side, the coatings, urethane cements, that's fairly new. That's actually really new. So, but,
I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about that later on in the show.
Yeah.
What percentage of your work is with builders and remodelers versus, let's say, retail people calling you off the street or finding you?
That's a great question. So right now, I would say 95+% is through builders and remodelers, general contractors on some of the commercial underlayment stuff that we do. But yeah, I mean, for our tile stuff, it's 95+.
So you're a pro's pro.
We're a pro's pro.
Yep.
We try to be.
Yep.
Somebody's got to be the expert out there. Builders rely on us to know what's going on, to be up to date with the people that mandate what we do, the Tile Council of North America predominantly. So you've got to have an expert because your customers are relying on us, who's relying on us to be kind of in the loop on what needs to happen out there. So
yeah, and does it seem? I mean, tile's obviously been around a long time, hundreds, if not thousands of years, I would guess, right? I think of the Parthenon and these big chunks of marble.
Absolutely,
right? But the adhering process and what are some of the technology changes that have been happening? Let's say the last decade or two,
yeah,
even now.
Lots of changes with waterproofing, mortar. Grouts, big time. Things have changed a lot. It's actually gotten a lot more complicated with that, but we can do a lot more with the products. So it kind of used to be you're going to have your mortar, you're going to have your standard grouts, you're going to use cement board backer, you're going to put a vinyl pan liner in there, and that's going to be your shower. Nowadays, we're using all kinds of different topical waterproofing systems, fabrics. We use a kind of a hybrid system. We double up on it a little bit. So we do a mud base, we do a waterproof fabric, and then we do a liquid waterproofer over the top of that.
Is that the Red Guard?
That's actually, we use a different product now.
I see.
But yeah,
but the same
RX8 plus 9.
Yeah,
same idea.
Yep.
Yep, exactly. Same idea. It's a little bit different formula, but yeah. So
it's funny. So we have a house in the Parade Homes right now, and someone was just asking, like, what does a shower cost? And I told them, like, hey, this shower, in a higher end home, just the shower is, let's call it $10,000 to $12,000, right, with the tile and install.
Yep.
And they're like, how can that be? And I was trying to explain to them how much labor goes into it. I think people think it's just the tile that they're picking. Like, hey, I picked out a tile that's $8, $10, $12, $20, whatever it is, a foot. And they're like, well, that's what it should be. There's not that many feet.
Yeah.
This isn't how I plan on starting the show, but we'll get right to brass tacks for the business owners listening. Walk me through and prospective buyers, like how much time is involved with just a single shower?
Yeah, so typically we're going to look at a shower, just a standard size shower is going to take us for sure over a week. It's going to be somewhere in that 7-day range, depending on the products that you're using. You can kind of correlate it to the more expensive the system you're using, the quicker you can get it done.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you typically can. So the old school, the way we used to do it with the pre-slope pan mud bed, so that's kind of the way people did it forever. Really hard to get that done properly in less than 7 days. You can do it on a smaller shower now, but it's got to do with the size of the shower and all that. But
and is that just the drying time in between the applications?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's say an 8-hour or 10-hour workday, whatever you guys are doing, how much time would they be in that? Let's just say that single shower. Because a lot of times as a GC, I'll be like, well, the tile guys are gone. Well, they were probably there for the 2 hours to do whatever. Like, walk me through like the actual hours like per day that they can actually even do anything to do that in a week. Yeah.
So if you're going to do like the old school system, you're going to do a pre-slope and then you're going to put a pan in, and you can sometimes get away with doing that at the same time. The pan is kind of like look at it like the pool, the liner that's in there. And then that's got to sit, and you're going to do your mud bed over the top of that. That's going to sit. So those processes are all going to take a couple of hours, but they're going to, you're going to wait a day
Right.
in between. So then you're going to have your topical waterproofer. So typically those are going to get 2 coats.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to put a coat on. You're probably going to end up putting the second coat on the next day. You might be able to get one on at the end of the first day or that same day. Then you can start actually looking at possibly putting some tile on after that.
Right. So you're already 3 days in, 4 days in. And I assume that's obviously why, scalability is so important for you. I can't imagine what scheduling is for you. I've been doing this for 18 years and I'm asking you questions that I should know the answers to. But, half the reason that I'm having this podcast is the Curious Builder. I'm very curious now, more so than I was even in my youth. Actually, early on when things were slower, I think in 2009, I had this idea that I wanted to work 2 weeks with every single subcontractor. They won't have to pay me. I just wanted to be there to see what they did. I still think it's a great idea. Now we're way too busy to have that kind of time
That's the problem.
to do it. Yeah. So I guess we'll just do it 1 hour at a time on the podcast. But if you have 5 bathrooms in a house, now you could keep a single tile guy busy. I mean, is that how you schedule?
100%.
How do you schedule?
Yeah, so the scheduling part of it is hard. Every single week is different depending on what kind of jobs we have, and you're exactly right. So if a job's got 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 showers in it, we're going to be able to staff a significant amount of people there and keep them busy. If you've got a 1 shower project, like a remodel or something like that, that's a lot more difficult. So now we've got a guy that's going to probably go there. Hopefully there's a bath floor or maybe a tub surround or something that he can work on in between those layers. If not, he's going to have to go to a different job. Costs a little bit more because my guys are mostly salaried guys and they're or hourly guys, and they're on the clock on the road going to another job and all that kind of stuff then. So there's a lot of scheduling difficulties with it. It's pretty tough. So luckily, I've got some guys that help me out with that and do a wonderful job with that. So thank you, Aaron, for handling the scheduling part and taking that off. Holy moly, that's a tough job. But
knowing it more now than I did before. I mean, the one thing people ask sometimes the difference between building or remodeling a home versus building a new. Some advantages of the new home is, if I order something that takes a long time, I've got this long window. Let's say a home takes 10 months to a year. I've got some pieces that need to be sequential, obviously, but some can filter in later, windows obviously are famously backordered right now just because of demand. And we had one window that was, I think, 9 months delayed from when we ordered it. So we put that, it was a bifold door. We put it in about 3 weeks before the show and had to, everything else was done, right? You can't wait around that. Yeah. And every once in a while you'll see something that's way backordered, but I guess the reason it's applicable is just from a scheduling standpoint, you have more time. Or a remodel standpoint, we don't even start a house now until we actually have the windows. And same with tile. I mean, we're really aggressive early on in the process, getting you guys involved with the interior designers. Once we sign the contract, tile is, I think, number 4 on my list to get going because you guys are early enough in the process, and just with lead times right now, we want to make sure we're not waiting on it.
So you mentioned some of the stuff like the Parthenon and some of these old things. A lot of this stuff still comes from Italy and Turkey, a lot of countries like that. So now we're dealing with containers, we're dealing with customs. There's all kinds of stuff that flies up. The good news about tile is you can always just reselect it. Homeowners don't like it, builders don't like it because you know what happens. I mean, you got to get a designer re-involved in it. They don't want to do it. You got to get a homeowner re-involved in it. They don't want to do it. I've got to get myself and my staff involved in it. They don't want to do it, but at the end of the day, at least there's an out. Where if we're talking a window,
I see.
You're not reselecting a window. You're just waiting for the window.
Right. And that opening's probably already framed up. It's already there.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So worst case scenario, that ship sinks.
Yeah.
Your tile was on the Titanic. Sorry, it didn't make it.
The good news is there's something that looks just like it. I know it's not what you loved and you really want, but we can get the sitting room to reselect something and take care of it. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
How walk me through some of the different platforms of the business. So you'd mentioned Underlayment. Why don't you explain to the listeners, what that entails exactly? Because you do that almost like for other tile companies, if I understand that correctly.
We do, yeah. So our business, our customers are other tile contractors, other builders that are doing like in-floor heat projects and stuff like that. And I'll get into a little bit of that. And then general contractors too. So that product that we pour is it's a cementitious product like concrete, except it's super thin. It's engineered. It can bond down to regular concrete, OSB, plywood, things like that, with the right primers, and it can be poured ultra thin. So we can pour it like the thickness of a credit card.
Really?
Or up to, depending on the product, up to even 3 inches deep with some of the products. Most of them we don't pour over an inch deep at a time, but we can put additional lifts on it. What we use it for commercially, typically it's going to be for flattening a floor.
Mm-hmm.
So you get into a commercial space and they're going to rip out the flooring, put a new floor in. Somebody's got to come in and make sure the floor is smooth enough for whatever vinyl or tile or carpet that they're going to put in there.
Mm-hmm.
So we come in there and it's a niche business, but we get in there with our equipment. We've got we've got 4-5 pumps now that we use to for different situations.
Would that
to
be
pump this.
Separate trucks, or you'd have multiple pumps in a single truck?
We have a couple of different trucks, but there's only one pump in a truck.
I see.
And one of our pumps is actually a trailer. So we've got a few different ways that we can tackle these things.
And is that for site access or for capacity? Or
both. Yeah. So depending on the product, we'll use a different size pump.
Mm-hmm.
So if we've got it's the scale of the project, right? If it's huge, we're going to use one of our bigger pumps. That's our trailer pump. And if it's a smaller, a lot of our work is just a couple of bathrooms for a tile guy or a builder. And on those, we've got a truck that's all set up that's super mobile. We'll hit like 3-4 jobs a day and go hammer them out. So,
and what I assume that's a separate crew. Like the guys that I see doing tile work would never do that.
Nope.
That's all they do.
Totally separate. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Let's see, how am I going to phrase this question exactly? How, when you're showing, or when you're looking for the work to do this, why are you pitching this product? I know there's other mats that's called Detra mats, or I've seen it where they take Durarock and put it on the floor. I mean, just walk me through why. I mean, because I have only ever used you guys really for tile, so to me, this is the right way you do it. I hardly even know what the other systems are.
Well, it is the right way to do it.
Well, I know that's because I've got a Pros Pro. But for those out there that are doing it a different way, what is the superior? Why is this such a better product?
There's a couple of reasons, and it depends on what your application is. So, and you mentioned a couple of different things. So there's just a regular tile backer. So if it's just for tile backer, the other ways you can do it is you can use a mat like Detra would be an example of it. Ardex has one called Flex Bone. There's a lot of them out there. Those are good products. The bad part of those is they just follow the contour of the floor.
Right.
So you're not getting any flatter really. So we are achieving really the same thing. We're creating a solid substrate for tile, but we're flattening the floor at the same time. Mm-hmm. So if there's a low spot, which you'd be surprised, I mean, new construction has gotten worse as far as frame quality goes, in my opinion.
Do you think that's the material or the labor or both?
I think it's probably mostly the labor.
Do you think they're just going too fast? Less skill?
Less skill, too fast, all of the above, I believe. So we see quite a bit of it. And framers, it's hard to find good framers. I mean, it's I don't know if it's just a dying trade or if it's just the probably speed too, but definitely frame quality's gone down. So there's a lot of floors out there that require, if you're going to put a tile down that's over 15 inches long, that's considered a large format tile by the Tile Council of North America. And for that, there's certain flatness requirements that you should have. Mm-hmm. So any tile setter that goes into a room should be checking that and saying, this doesn't meet our tolerance. We need to do something here to make this flatter. Here's our options. And it might be a mud set where you can literally go in with a sand mix and flatten it out with that. That's a ton of labor. It's got to be 3/4 of an inch thick at least. But you can get a flat floor doing that. That's a super old school way to do it. The other option, if you're going to get it flat, is to use a self leveler. Mm-hmm. So that's what we do.
I mean, you just mentioned, was it 3/4 of an inch for the old way? I mean, you can go down to a thickness of a credit card.
Yeah. So 1/4 inch is really, if we're going to go over plywood, we're not going to go any less than 1/4 inch. And you got to remember, if we're
just because of the deflection.
So the products over plywood, they're typically going to need to be 1/4 of an inch. There's a lot of fibers that we need to add to it, or lath that we need to, that has to get covered.
I see.
So we're not going to go 1/4 inch or a credit card thickness, or feather edge is what we call it, but we're not going to go that thin over plywood. Mm-hmm. But we can go quite, it's a 1/2 inch less than a mud set.
Right.
So, yeah.
And is that mainly due when you're trying to line up floor heights? I mean, is that the reason you're messing around with heights? I mean, I know we struggled with this early on, and, as soon as I walked, I think they call it the California step, right? Where you've got that angled, and I was like, no, never again. I never want to see a California step in one of my homes, unless it's a remodel and you have no choice. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, you know how particular I get on this. I'm constantly asking the PMs and everyone to double check it, because, it's something on the front end. If you design it right, you never have to worry about, right? So we're holding it down 2 inches, and that's a truss design. We tell our architects, we write on the plans, And
it's a beautiful thing. That's the way to do it. And if you give yourself that much room, you really can achieve a flat transition every time. You really should be able to.
Yeah.
There's thought that goes into it. When we go in there, we've got to understand what the adjacent floor covering is. Are we talking 5/8 inch hardwood? Is it 3/4 inch? Is it carpet? What do we put next to it? And then we've got to take into consideration our mortar thickness, our pour thickness, and our tile thickness. And tiles are anywhere from 1/4 inch to 3/4 of an inch thick, depending on what the product is. So
I've always been kind of warned off, probably from you, about why is it cement tile has such a bad rap? I mean, because it looks cool. You see it on Instagram. Our customers are coming in saying, "Oh, I like this look and I love this print," and I've come to hate it.
We hate it.
Yeah, that's probably why I hate it, because you telling me you hate it. Why should I continue to hate it?
You shouldn't. You shouldn't continue to hate it. It's not. That's the wrong phrasing. There's just more that goes into it. So the cement tiles, there's a couple of things with them. They're thicker. They're always thicker. So we've got to take that into consideration. That's not really that big of a deal. But what is important is there's a lot of pre-work that needs to happen. And there's instructions. Every one of them's a little bit different. But you're going to probably be pre-sealing it. We pre-seal them.
Is that because it's porous?
Yeah. Yep. The porosity, you'll suck the moisture out of the mortar, and then you can have some issues with that. And you can get some picture framing from it, which is if you've got a product that's super porous and you grout it without sealing it, it'll actually draw moisture in, and you can get like a picture frame around the tile.
You know what? I didn't know that was I know what you're talking about, but I never know there was actually a terminology for it.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Picture frame.
Yeah. So
and that only happens with cement tile, or is that
no. Any porous tile it can happen to. So we'll analyze every tile that we get, and even if there's not a recommendation from that manufacturer, we'll look at it and decide if we're gonna wet it, seal it, what we're gonna do to make sure that we don't have any problems.
What does wetting it do?
Well, if we're going to just wet the tile a little bit so that it's not drawing so much moisture out of the mortar.
So you pre-dip it in a bucket of water?
Exactly.
Wow.
Lots of tricks out there. So, and it depends on most of what we put in nowadays is porcelain. Porcelain's a great product. Porcelain's the best product there is out there. It's the most durable. It's the most color fast, certainly. As far as installation goes, it's going to be typically the simplest. Kind of standard mortars and everything work fine for it. So, is
it also usually the least expensive?
Ceramics and porcelains typically. That's a tough one to answer because that's all over the board.
All over the board.
It really
so
is.
Even though it's a porcelain doesn't mean it's necessarily economical.
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of options out there. There's way more porcelain options out there than there's going to be anything else.
Why is that?
Probably the durability and, ease of shipping, ease of installation. Technically, I mean, it's going to be less to install porcelain typically than any type of natural stone or cement or anything like that. As
obviously a tile pro, I'm guessing, do you like natural products
I do.
the best?
I do.
Do you find that for me it's like luster, right? I can see how light plays off of it. Even now, like in countertops, which I guess you guys, now that we see more and more porcelain tile countertops, we get called on by companies that do that. But I still like granites, marbles. When I look at it, it's a feeling I get. And it's also, if you really know what you're looking for, there's a bit of a sheen when the light is right.
Because it doesn't look fake. It's totally what it is.
Right. So porcelain,
Yeah.
I mean, so anyway, natural stone is hard to beat.
I'm a natural stone guy, 100%. So when I'm putting stuff, I've got, various things in my house, but there's more natural stone in my house than the average house, I would say. So.
And you build, obviously, we're a high-end builder. Most of our stuff is between, let's say, $1.5 million to $5 million, and you do stuff probably anywhere from a couple $100,000 to 10 million, 20 million. I mean, you've done stuff with some big hitters. Once you start getting up, into the multi-million dollars, is pretty much everything stone, or do you still see porcelain at those price points
still
too?
See porcelain, yeah, absolutely. Every buyer's a little bit different on what they're trying to achieve.
And designer, I assume a lot of the stuff gets spec'd by the designers too, right?
100%. A lot of those houses, architects are speccing it too. So, we've done several of those with you where the architect's actually speccing some of the tile in there. So a lot of that gets driven that way, and I think it's more what the customer is ultimately wanting. Do they want something that's super durable? Are they going to be taking their shoes off in their mudroom? Because if not, put a porcelain in. Right. You're going to have scratched tile.
So a question for you. You did one for us a couple of years ago on Lake Minnetonka in Minnesota here. And it was a single sheet of porcelain tile. And you had the big suction cups like you have, in Mission Impossible when you're climbing a glass building. Same things. I heard those things can hold like 300 pounds or something like that, which is pretty cool.
Higher than that, actually.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah, some of they all vary.
Tom Cruise must not have had one of those when he was climbing that Dubai tower.
Yeah.
Remember, he almost fell off.
Yeah.
He should have come to River City Tile and Stone.
Ramondi products. Yeah. Come on, buddy.
So we diverged just a little bit there. My question is those, how often do you do those? So for those listening, describe what I'm discussing a little bit and some of the pros and cons of that, because it was really impressive to look at.
Yeah, they're cool. So it's a porcelain product. It's a panel. They're anywhere from, well, they vary in sizes, but the large format ones are 4 foot by 8 foot or 5 foot by 10 foot. Mm-hmm. So you can encapsulate like a whole shower wall with one piece of tile, or a floor, or we do a lot of fireplaces and stuff like that. We do a lot of them. We've actually got 3 that are scheduled right now that I can think of off the top of my head, projects that are those. One of them is a house in Eden Prairie that's, I think, got 6 bathrooms that are all panels.
Oh my.
Yeah, a lot of money in that one, but it's they're very cool products. So we cut them on a score and snap cutter, but obviously it's a table.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you cut them themselves, or are they pre-manufactured?
We cut them.
You do?
We cut them on
shop?
a job site.
Oh, on the job site?
On the job site, yeah.
So if you had, let's say, a 4x8 sheet or whatever, and let's just say that was the finished dimension, how much more extra do you order that's already pre-done? Like, what are you cutting away?
Yep. So we actually do a layout before we order it. So we're going to do a full layout with the designer. We have to work with the designers pretty intently with it, because there's veining you got to consider, and some of them are book matched where you've got to put this one next to this one and that kind of thing. So we'll figure out exactly how many panels the finished shower or fireplace is going to take. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to probably order 2 extra panels.
Interesting.
What happens with these things, they're actually super brittle.
Yep.
When you're carrying them around, getting them to the job site, getting them up to the room, and when you're actually snapping them, because you actually score it and then break the cut pieces off, and it almost always works, but it doesn't always work. So
what, 1 out of 10? How often do you actually need one of those extra panels?
Yeah, maybe probably not quite that many break, but maybe 1 out of 20, 1 out of 15, something like that. You're gonna find some that break. It depends on how much you're breaking off. Corners, stuff like, there's a lot to deal with with those. But once you get them on the wall, you got to have great coverage. Coverage meaning the amount of thin set that's bonded and secured to the substrate. So we shoot for 100% coverage early on everything, but it's really important with those. But once they're on the wall, super durable. You got a porcelain product with no grout joints. So it's really it's a superior system once it's installed. So we've been through training and all that kind of stuff.
Because there's not, when you did it for us about, I think it was 4 years ago, we built that house. I think there was only like 2 or 3 companies in the metro area that could even do that.
Yeah.
How many are there even today in Minneapolis that can do that?
I don't know, but I mean, I'm sure a couple of dozen.
Okay. I would so there's more now than there was, because it's becoming more and more requested.
For sure.
Am I correct in saying, just for the listeners out there, about grout, that grout is porous? Tile, I assume porcelain tile is not porous.
Correct.
Is that correct? So
is correct.
Water will penetrate through any grout line. Mm-hmm. So really, is it safe to say you could have a shower that had no tile in it and it would still operate like a shower? Could you have like essentially a Durock with RedGuard or whatever product you have, and have no tile on it?
Absolutely. Yeah, you could. So, I mean, it's you're throwing warranties and everything else out the window, but they're designed to be waterproof before we put the tile on them. All the prep work takes care of all the waterproofing.
Right.
So we use waterproof board, backer board. So our showers are now waterproof all the way up to the top. So 100%. Yep. When you're using Durock, the old systems, they weren't that way. That was a porous product. Yep. But yeah, they're completely waterproof.
Interesting. So, I mean, is it an oversimplification to say that tile is essentially decorative in that scenario?
It is only the only thing I would add to that is that those substrates aren't meant to be worn. They're not a wear surface. Just like underlayments, they're not wear surface. So all these things are designed to not take impact and abuse, right? But to simplify it, I mean, they are It is just decorative.
And where I'm going with this is if you had a crack in a tile, I live in a 1919 home and we remodeled it, and I think the person before us had remodeled it, and one of the tiles is cracked. But I know that I'm not really worried about a leak because even if water goes through that crack, I know that it's fine.
Yeah, the grout's not gonna. We get a lot of calls where my grout's cracked. Well, your grout cracks. It's pretty common. You'll see it on backsplashes and stuff like that. We caulk a lot of that now, so you're supposed to caulk any change of plane. But that even will crack because houses move. I mean, the wood studs, the framing, everything shrinks and expands and everything seasonally. So you're going to get some cracks. We get a lot of calls. My grout's cracked. Worried about it leaking. Telling you if that causes a leak in your shower, we got big problems. The whole thing's coming out. But
they probably have to build a new house. Do you want to give them one of my cards?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Call Mark. You can build your new house. We're good. Yeah,
your tile's cracked. You got to build a new house.
No, you're right though. I mean, it's the waterproofing's all behind it.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. So, you and I go way back. Obviously, you're from Chaska. I'm from Chaska.
Go Hawks.
And, go Hawks. I was 99. What year did you graduate?
97.
97.
Yeah, so you graduated with my wife, actually, and my brother.
Yep.
So, we're very well connected. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. I would say just off the cuff, I'd say about 30% of the people that work in our company not directly went to high school, but either went to, I would say within a 5 to 10 mile radius of Chaska, Waconia, Carver, Delano, Minnetrista. Yeah, it's amazing at how many of our trade partners are from that location. And I just found out this recently. I'm trying to get more involved with education because one of my questions for you is, what do you see in the industry in terms of age? Like, it's a common question. I happen to be 42. You're a couple years older, but we would probably be considered fairly young in our industry, which we've been doing this for 18 years, or I have, and it's like I don't feel that young compared. But you look around, and a lot of our peers are much older than us. But I'm also a little nervous because the people that we employ, like I had heard the other day that the average age of plumbers and mechanicals in Minnesota was like 58, and someone said that if the average age was below 35, you're in a declining industry, which means like they are 20 years beyond declining.
Wow.
We have a major labor problem coming up. And so I guess I'm curious, I've heard that from plumbing. I've heard that there's certain industries that maybe attract younger people for whatever reason. What do you see in the tile industry?
Well, before we get into that, I'll say we already have a major labor problem.
Yes, agreed.
I would say. But no, we're blessed. We've got quite a few younger folks on our team. So my age range for guys that I have is 21 to, I'm trying to think of how old, 56, something like that.
Yep.
So we've got quite a range, but the majority of our guys are probably upper 30s and 40s. So it's kind of, for us specifically, it's nice. But I mean, if you look at tile setters as a whole, if you're looking at the union, and it's just other companies, competitors that I know and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, 50s, I would say, is probably average.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting. And I actually want to look into this. Did you ever have Mr. Jacobs for?
Oh yeah, Ron Jacobs.
Yeah, he was amazing. And I heard something recently that was shocking to me. Do you know that in high schools these days they do not even have shop class anymore?
What?
Yeah. So this is the first you've heard of it.
So my brother was a shop teacher.
Matt?
Yeah, he was a shop teacher for 2 years.
No way.
And then so I was working at Lyman Lumber.
Yeah.
And
that's where we first started.
Yeah,
you were
that's
my
where
lumber
first,
rep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I actually I got Matt to come over to Lyman, and he worked with us for a little while there, and then I ended up buying into Rive City. So, but yeah, that's I can't believe they don't have shop anymore.
They don't have
shop,
but that's like a state thing, and I think it might even be starting to be a country thing. But there's no home ec, there's no shop, and so one of the things that I'm partnering with another builder to try to promote education on this is these younger kids don't even know about the opportunity because it's a great field. It's really rewarding. I mean, it's very tough for sure, but there's a lot of opportunity here. And especially with the age of that declining industry, I mean, HVAC, electricians, I mean, I think there's a lot. It's very lucrative.
Yeah.
You could do very well with a small company.
Yep.
And I wish we were doing more to push education for people to realize this kind of opportunity, especially for people that want, if you had no exposure, I mean, my dad happened to be a builder and my mom's an interior designer. I happened to, I knew I did not want to build because they retired and evidently I became a builder after all, but I couldn't escape it. But my point is there's something very tangible and very rewarding. You build something or a part of the process. I'd really try, whether it's our parade home, whether we do little community events with our trade partners. I love to get people out to the finished product. Like, your guys, they see the tile installed, and a lot of tile guys are at the end, so they do get to see it. But like the framers rarely come back and see the house when it's done. And I feel like as an industry, we could do a better job of getting the people that are behind the scenes to and they do take pride in it. I had this one framer that used to take pictures all the time, and he would share it. He maybe had 10 friends on Facebook. It didn't matter. He was so proud of that house.
Yeah.
And I love that sense of ownership.
Yeah.
And I would love for high school kids to have more exposure to that. We're actually working with Minnetonka High School right now that's called this Vantage Plus, but it's more on the business side. So 10 kids every semester will come into our company and we give them a project. If you're interested, I'll hook you up with the program director.
Definitely.
They're always looking for local businesses, and essentially you task these kids. You can have them do a research project. We had them interview all my past clients one time. I had them research all the other competing builders in their websites to rank who was the best. We were number 2, so that was like, okay. For 19-year-olds evidently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so anyway, we need to do a better job of educating the next tier, the next people that for as long as we're owning our career, we need more bodies.
We do. Yeah. The Builders Association, which I shouldn't call it the Builders Association, Housing First, which is a very powerful association, a very big association. We've got a nice one here. That's who runs a parade of homes and everything. They've got a workforce development committee. I used to be on that committee. Had to exit that just for time, but it's things like that are real important. So there's a lot of outreach there. Go to schools and do presentations and stuff like that. But it gets harder and harder. And if there's not a shop class at the school, I'm not really sure how you even approach high school kids.
One of the other builders that was pitching this to me wants to take it to Minnesota Housing First and try to make it a legislation deal. I mean, this is going to have to go into education. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that they'd taken it out. I was shocked.
That's absurd.
It is. It's terrible, actually.
Not everybody should go spend a fortune at school, at least not right away. Go out and make a little bit of money. You might love one of these trades. I mean, electricians, tile setters. Tile's great because you get to see you're working from stud all the way to finished product in one specific area, and when it's done, I mean, it looks done and it's beautiful.
It's very rewarding. I always say like framing. I always caution my homeowners. Let's say a year and a half build. Actually, the first 3 months looks like this thing might be done in about 6 months because when lumber's flying, it's like, whoa! In 1 week, my entire second story went on. Another week, the roof went on. I mean, they get so used to seeing dramatic changes, and then it stops for like 5 months. It looks like, is anyone at my house?
Why have they been pulling wires for 3 weeks? Yes, that's what it takes.
But to your point, tile, for considering the duration on a large home that we're building, let's say it's 5,000-6,000 square feet, tile guys might be in there for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and that'll be stud walls and sheetrock to finished showers, and it's dramatic, and it's like, okay, I can see my progress. I feel like that's healthy for people who are working. When you can see progress, it's healthy.
It is, and the guys take pride in it. I'm taking a couple of my guys to to review a house that we completed that's done. Homeowners are living there and said, anybody wants to come look at it, come look at it. Yeah, they're like, heck yeah, I want to go take a look at that finished product. Let's see it. So, and we see it when it's done, but the plumbing fixtures aren't on the wall.
Right.
And, it's pretty cool to see it when it's completed.
Yeah, I mean, when it's furnished and when it's complete. Project. It's amazing. That's why I love like the Parade of Homes. I mean, we get a chance to showcase, the work that we do jointly. Everyone gets to see it. And in Minnesota, for those that are listening outside the state, we have one of I think the oldest tour in the country. And by far, it's won a number of national awards. I mean, I think this year's tour has like 400 or 500 homes on tour. We happen to have the Dream Home, and all the proceeds for that $5 admission go to, Minnesota Housing First charity to, help with nonprofit related building and, Wounded Warrior projects. And it's a great foundation. They do an amazing job of just promoting and the building industry and trying to help bring in costs and awareness to the industry.
It's quite impressive, and we I think we take it for granted a little bit, but we've got a nice association here.
I'm always, obviously the name of the show is The Curious Builder, so I'm going to ask you some business questions. Jared Davies, who owned the company before you, I don't know if you know this. So when I first started building in 2005, 6, and 7, I actually worked with Yetzers a little bit. So Steve Yetzer, who owned I think he sold it now, but I think
Yeah.
it's still called Yetzer's in Waconia. He did all back then, the interior design forces were not nearly as strong as what they were then. So when my dad was building a model home, he'd buy carpet and tile from Steve, and then Steve, in order to get his business, would say, well, here's a couple couches, to put in your model home. And so that was how their relationship started. And so I started using Steve, but Steve, that's how I first met Jared and Rive City. And then you came on in what year to work with Rive City?
Yeah, so 2011 I came on, and then 2012, got kind of bought into the company. So yeah, we were doing work with Yetzer's before I was there, and then after for a while too. They got away from builders, so we kind of just dissolved that a little bit. But that was an interesting time. So yeah, Rive City started in 2002. There was 3 owners at the time. Jared and then Jared's dad were 2 of the owners, and then another guy was with for a few years. He was kind of the tile expert, and Jared was kind of the underlayment expert, but they both knew both sides of the business very well. So then I don't know, it was probably around 2005 actually, right in there when it was just Jared and Greg up until, like I said, 2000, I think it was 2011. And then, we kind of moved forward from there. So I joined in. I was working for a material supplier before that, came aboard, knew a lot of builders like yourself and that from my previous work, and came aboard, and then we kind of just organically grew it from there.
I actually never thought about that. I have to imagine that's been a huge advantage now that you own the business and bought it out, working and calling on people that you essentially used to have relationships with. Is that true?
A lot of our customers I've been working with for 20 plus years. Some of them I've worked with when I was in high school, framing and trim carpentry.
I didn't know
and
you had
stuff
framed.
like that.
Really?
Yeah, I framed for a couple of years. Yeah, summers and stuff when I was in early high school, and then.
Did you work for Lyman right out of high school?
No,
then,
I started with Lyman in 2001.
Oh,
so
okay.
there was a stretch here. I went to college for a year, and like I was preaching a little bit ago, wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I did some community college stuff, but worked full time then. So then I was framing and trimming. So. And actually, one of our customers now is who I framed and trimmed for.
Isn't that amazing?
Back then, yeah.
Full circle.
And then guys like you and quite a few. Actually, I'd have to look, but I would venture to guess that I worked with close to half of our customers for probably 20 years.
That's pretty cool.
Places,
considering that you've owned the company now for what, 10?
10, yeah.
I cannot believe it's been a decade.
I know.
Whoa. If you had asked me before you just said that, I would have said 4 or 5 years.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah, it's been 10 years. Been 10 years.
That's amazing.
So it is.
From a business side, what have you learned? Now you're a business owner, and you probably always had the mindset of one. Walk me through a little bit, for those listening, and just I'm always interested in, there's always something in another person's, even though we're in related fields.
Yeah. Any
Any business, I don't care if you're selling shoes, backpacks, flowers, there is some business commonality regardless of what you do. Tell me a little bit about, your day-to-day operations. What are some business things that have worked for you? I mean, obviously your company is extremely successful and continues to evolve as you're bringing out a new product line and new offerings. I don't know, walk me through a few things that has really helped guide you to be a successful business owner.
Yeah, so some of the core basics of it that work for whether you're a business owner or a salesperson or an installer out there is you have to have customers that like you, and you got to have employees that like you. And it's super important. Like customer service is just number one for us. Quality should go without saying. Good attitude should go without saying. But having said all that, mistakes are going to happen, and then how you address those things and handle them, that's where you get those long-term relationships. That's where you're working with guys for 20 years because they know something's going to happen. If they've got a different tile contractor in there, something's going to happen with those guys too. How you handle that situation is how you're going to.
It's funny. I have a story you probably don't know, but to speak to your point specifically to you. So there's been a couple times, I would say, over the last 17, 18 years where we had, I don't know, whatever it was, Tile. I can't even really remember. But, we called you. You guys, Mark, I got it. We'll take care of it. We'll figure it out. And you do. And so to your point, it's like when you're in a stressful situation and you know who not only your friends, but your teammates are, and you're like, oh yeah, that's why I'm working with this company. I think it's easy to keep working with people when everything goes swimmingly.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more reaffirming when things go bad.
Yeah.
And you're like, whether you're calling in a favor or not, part of it is how you ask too. I mean, if someone asks in a very, demanding way, that usually, but if you ask for help, I mean, how often does someone ask for help? That was something actually I got as career advice, that ask for help.
Yeah.
And I have found it to be probably one of the most beneficial business things to do is simply just ask for help. Because at the end of the day, we're humans. We're compassionate. That's my belief. I'd like to believe people are compassionate human beings. And if you ask someone genuinely for help, they will help you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they'll, it's not free all the time. And it's not really the point. The point is people have a large capacity to help others. And you guys have done a great job with that. We had one that I'm thinking of in particular where, what was the issue now? Now I'm blanking. I'll have to edit this part out because I just brain farted.
Leave it in.
Wow, I can't remember. Yeah, it was so good I forgot about it. It was just seamless transition. Well, shoot. That was going to be a good story, too. I got derailed when I was buttering it up for the end. All right.
We've had a couple, but
yeah,
you can just get through them and solve them.
Yeah. Oh, man, I really want that one. Give me a second here to think about what that one was. That was a good one.
How long ago?
I don't even remember. I'm trying to think of what it was. Oh, I know. Okay, so speaking of, partners, benefiting you both ways. We support you, you support us. It's definitely a team, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have pictures in the front of our yard of people that have worked on our home. I want people when they come to the parade of homes to realize, like, yes, I may be the face of the company, but that's only because I happen to be there. I can't do it without the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that support me in the relationships we have to build these beautiful homes, right? And so you want to celebrate the people that, essentially have built this beautiful home, right? And we tried another tile company about 4 years ago. And I think it was mainly at the behest of the client. We had a bid from you, and it was like 1,000 or 2,000 more on a big job. It was like a $32,000 job. So it was nothing, right? Yeah. And we said, we hadn't worked with anyone else other than Rive City in like decades. So tell you what, you want them, you didn't like this price, you think, it's the common thing of like, why is their labor so high? Mm-hmm. Well, we just spent the last 40 minutes talking about why labor is so high. It takes a week to do a single shower, right? So they're like, whatever. So we found this other company, and they did the work, and they were fine. There was nothing wrong with it. We had an issue about 30 days or 60 days after closing. It was like pulling teeth, and everything was defensive. It's not our fault. It must have been someone, and it was so, and I was never really going to go away from you guys because we had such a great relationship. But like any business, you're still trying to understand, like, is this the right fit? I think it was, you were probably 4 or 5 years into your ownership, and, you're trying to test the waters and see like, okay, well, how good is Mike? Turns out he's pretty good. And this other guy made you look like a rock star because of how they handled this situation. It was a super benign situation too. Huh. And they just simply kept trying to pass the buck versus if it had been you, it was just like, Mark, we got this. And so I remember that very well just because it spoke volumes of these long-term relationships. I got asked today actually on a remodel meeting, they asked us, when you go out to bid, how many bids do you get? I said, I do get multiple bids from time to time because it's important to make sure that we're competitive in our industry. But here's the deal. I want to look at we build 4 to 5 high-end homes a year. I want to be able to look my clients in the eyes and say, Mike is doing my tile. I've got Rich doing my cabinetry. I mean, I need to know who I'm going to battle with, and I don't want to use something that's unproven in battle. It's unwise. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not open-minded to other people, but once you have a relationship, I know what you expect from me. You know what you expect from me, but it's the intercommunication between the subcontractors. And I don't know how to express this to a client in a very clear way, but the relationship that the subs have with each other and respect each other's work, I think is one of the reasons why our homes, when people will come through, they'll say, your homes feel different. And, it's not getting all touchy-feely about the subject, but maybe I am. There's a lot of, Sure, we'll go there. There's a lot of love that goes in the sense of like passion, hard work, effort, pride. All of these things make a home really, really in it. But it's the relationships is the glue that binds all of it together. And so it's always important to be reminded of why those relationships are so important.
It is. It's super important. And like you said, when you get into a situation where something doesn't go right, whether it's who knows? I mean, it might not even be anybody's fault.
Those are actually the worst.
They are.
Because you don't know what to fix.
Yeah.
The worst is when you have something going wrong and you can't identify what it is exactly.
But that's when you need the people, because you're going to have a plumber, a tile guy, maybe a trim carpenter, a glass guy, all diagnosing what happened. And we're going to meet out there and we're going to dig into it. And whatever it is, we're going to figure it out and get it done. And if you don't have all those teams working together and have an attitude of, listen, Mark's got an issue here, we're going to get this taken care of. If you've got that, it's not that big of a deal.
And I think when it's all big picture, when you realize that, like, you don't always want it to be that way, but it is helpful when you know, like, hey, I'm doing this for another 20 years. You're probably doing it for a long period of time. You want to service your clients, and you know what? We have 5 other projects we're working on. I actually spin the question back where people ask, well, are you using different people? I mean, we can, but one of the reasons why I know that if I have an issue over there, I've got Mike on 5 other projects. He's going to make sure I'm taken care of.
Right.
And so people are looking for, what they're really asking is, are you getting the lowest price? But you're not coming to me because I'm the lowest price. I'm fine if you come to me because I'm the best value, but let's have a value statement. Let's talk about what we value. Do you value your shower in 10 years from now not leaking? Okay, well, let's have a conversation about that.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and it all tying together, and from design to, for us, like design, that's a good point. Like, we've got to have the vision that the designer walked through with the homeowner. It's got to come to fruition on the job site. So you can't have a new tile guy in there every time dealing with your designers and dealing with you and dealing with your job soups. Something's going to get messed up.
Communication, it's an oversaid thing, and we're certainly not perfect at it. We have a long way to go. I feel like it's a never-ending loop battle, but good communication. And you're a business owner, I'm a business owner, and let me ask you this: how do you promote good communication to your people? Because not every one of your people should be business owners, and the things that you and I prioritize, and the things that you try to teach that either by just example or literally telling them that. How have you promoted communication among your staff?
So we have a protocol that we try to keep in place, and it's about what the subject is. So if we've got a situation where something's going to change on a job site, that needs to go to my project manager or myself. What we do want to have is good communication on the job site with the other trades. So my tile setters, they all know I want you guys to have good communication with the other trades on site. So if we're working with an electrician on an in-floor heat situation, have communication with them, and then make sure that our project managers and Mark's project managers know what's going on, right? So there's got to be all that going on. But the communication part of it for us, it's as simple as follow these guidelines as best you can. But we're still dealing with humans here.
Right.
Some guys just love to talk all day long. I've got a few of them. I've got a few of them, right? So some guys are super quiet and they just want to put their earbuds in and go to town. I kind of like a little bit of mix of both because I don't want guys just to be the cold guy on the job site. I want them to have conversations and have a relationship with other guys. So we got to work with some guys on that. We got to work with some other guys just, dialing that back a little bit. So can't talk all day long, but
yeah, the one guy I always remember who tends to be on the quieter side, he shares our same name. It's Mark David, but I don't know his last names.
Yep.
And that's funny. It's when I found out the other day his name was David, I was like, oh man, you're one last name away from being the builder on this. And he's like, he got really like uncomfortable, like, oh, he doesn't want to be the builder.
Yeah.
But anyway, I always like to call him Mark D now when I see him on the job sites.
Yep. So it's Mark Larson, but you can keep go with Mark D.
It's just
that's
Mark
perfect.
D. I like that.
So he's a phenomenal tile setter.
Yeah,
he really is. But yeah,
I can tell he cares
quiet.
a lot about his craft. I mean,
does.
You can just see it. But he's quieter, and to your point about a mix, right? But he's always very engaging and very polite, and I love to engage with him. And it's always fun to compliment all your trade partners on their work. I think it goes a long way. I mean, it needs to be sincere, obviously, but they're doing an amazing craft.
Yeah.
And tile is, one of the last lines of defense in design, right? It's no different than paint and millwork and cabinetry. It is something that is very visual. In our current parade home, people are commenting on the tile all the time.
Yeah.
And so, man, there's so many more questions to ask you. We're going to have to bring you on for another podcast.
We'll do a reboot. Yeah.
Reboot. But why don't you, for a couple minutes here, what do you do outside of work? I know you're a big hunter and you like to wander the mountains. Tell me a little bit about that.
I enjoy wandering the mountains. Yeah. So I have been involved in outdoor activities for my whole life. My parents both got me into some of that stuff. I've kind of evolved my my passion more out west recently. I still hunt around here quite a bit. I duck hunt, I pheasant hunt, I bow hunt around here, but I like to take usually a few trips a year out west. So could be Montana, it could be Colorado, Wyoming, all over the place. We go to Arizona every year and do a bow hunt down there for mule deer. So
is that usually family, friends, just a network of
both?
Yeah.
Yep. Just a network of folks. So I'm actually on the board of the Midwest Wild Sheep Foundation as well. So some guys there that I'll probably start hunting with. So kind of broaden that a little bit as well. But yeah, I've been, I was on a week and a half stint here recently chasing bighorn sheep out in Montana and climbing some of the roughest terrain in the lower 48, if not the roughest terrain in the lower 48. So that was fun. Didn't see any rams that were legal or anything like that, but had a great trip out there. So
yeah. Now, are you camping every night wherever you're going, or are you retreating to a base camp, or how does that multi-day hunt go?
They vary.
Yeah.
They vary. So, like this hunt in particular is a backpack hunt. So you're going to I actually took 8 days of food with me on this one. And this was actually a solo hunt. I was going to have somebody with me, but they drew a different tag and ended up having to bail on the trip.
Yep.
So, ended up taking 7 or 8 days of food. I can't remember. And backpacking out. So you're out there the whole time. I ended up leaving early on that one to go to a different side just because where I was so cliffed out. And I mean, it's all rock and glaciers and scree and everything like that. So I basically hunted out what I could hunt, had to back out and then go to a different area. So I ended up doing like 2 3-day stints instead of the full thing. But great. I mean, it's the Beartooth Mountains. I don't know if you've been through there.
Yeah, we had a place in Montana for 20 years, so I haven't been a lot of time down there, but enough to know the terrain. It's beautiful.
It's just gorgeous.
And it's rugged.
Breathtaking, and it is something else. Man, I'll have to show you some pictures.
How, just because we're out of time, I guess 2 last questions. Is there anything in hunting or just kind of that, I assume you're recharging mentally in this space, is there anything that you find that you're able to apply to business? I assume you get a lot of business ideas. I know whenever I'm running or exercising, all these ideas, because you finally are decompressing, so it lets all these ideas free flow. How do you, when you're out hunting, what is your mind space like?
So that's exactly what it's for. That's part of what it's for. And it works incredibly well. You're totally right. You can kind of relieve yourself of the day-to-day stuff, and the big picture stuff starts coming out. So I have a notepad with me, and I've got my cell phone with me. So I take notes. I do some journaling when I'm out there, but some of it will be business-related stuff. And I mean, and I'll come back and apply those things. So I'm actually working on a few things now for the last couple of weeks that ideas that I had thought of when I was up in the Beartooth. So you got some time up there, right?
Yeah.
So it's incredible for that. It's really helpful. It's just managing to find the time when you get back to apply that stuff.
That's funny you say that. And then a parting note, I went to a conference in Nashville, and there's another one coming up here in a couple months I'm going to. I have 35 pages of notes, and I have made, it's my fault, I have made 0 time to actually execute those notes. Now, some of it are ideas that I'm sure have gone in and I've used them, but I need to go through, and I've actually blocked time in my schedule. I call it Think Business, because as a business owner, I don't spend enough time working on the business. We're creating, I was just talking to an interior designer about this. How much time do you spend working on your business? And I know as a business owner, that's something I need to do more of. But you tend to, and I do like it, but you're doing your day-to-day stuff you're used to, and
it's hard.
Yeah.
So it's funny. Just this morning, I realized that I haven't blocked off enough time to work on this stuff. So Wednesday afternoon, I've got a 3-hour window where
Yep.
this is what I'm doing.
Yep.
And I'm going to close my door. I wrote on there, close your door.
Yep.
I'm a meeting request to myself.
Yep.
So yeah, you have to schedule it all. Like
I've
that.
done that as well, but oftentimes it becomes the one
Mhm.
that gets,
It
kicked
does.
out
I mean,
the door. But I
something
think
more
I have mine reoccurring. I think I time block. I think it's every other week, Friday for like 2 hours, and it just says think business. And then basically it's a time slot that I keep protected. I won't put a client meeting in there, but you've got kids. It's like, something
Yep.
else comes up and, you're like, well, or an out of town client comes in. You're like, well, I got
You
it.
have to.
I have to take it.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, it's great to have you on. Where can our listeners find you guys?
So Rive City Tile and Stone is our website. So that's Rive City Tile and Stone spelled out.com, rivercityunderlayment.com. Our business line, 612-290-4100. Just reach out to us.
Okay. And as always, in the notes, if you want to go back and listen to anything that Mike and I have been talking about, it'll be spelled out there by chapters. We'll also have all of Mike's handles, Instagram, website, everything will be on there as well. Thanks for listening to The Curious Builder. And Mike, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right. See ya.